Where are the people that gave God some deadlines and he let that bad boy pass and go? Talking about, God, I need it by then. Lord, do it for me right now. Have you not learned God don't operate on your time? He ain't got to do nothing by Friday. He ain't got to do nothing by January the 30th or the 31st. He ain't got to come through with nothing in your timeline. But I heard some church folks say, he may not, I wish I had some help in here. He may not come when you want him, but wake that neighbor up and tell him he's always. In the book of Genesis, figure it's a new year, we may as well start from the beginning. The book of Genesis in chapter number 11. And I will hasten to read verses 1 through 9 again of Genesis chapter number 11. There's a very timely, very important, very critical word for us today, and I pray that you will receive it as such. Again, Genesis chapter 11, beginning with verse 1 says, "And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said to one another, Go to, and let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, Go to, and let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven. And let us make a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. And so the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men builded. And the Lord said, Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this they began to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. So God said, Let's go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Here it is. Therefore is the name of this place called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. So reads the word of our God. And so I was going to say a little while, for as long as the Lord sees fit, with your prayers as the Holy Spirit guides us, I simply want to talk about motives. What we do and why we do it. On your way to your seat, ask somebody around you, what's your motive? Amen. What we do, what we want, and why we want it. Ladies and gentlemen, this year of 2018, it has been declared and affirmed by us as the year of recovery. Depending on where you are, and depending on your spiritual grounding and wiring, we understand the fact that this idea takes on different meanings for different people. On one end of the room, someone may say, I need to recover my health, my physical health or my mental health. On the other pew, somebody may say, I really need God to recover my joy. I let some things get close to me. I let some things get me down. But whatever it is that you're believing God for this year to restore, to replenish, if you will, the seed that I want to plant in our hearts at the very beginning of this year, to you as an individual and to us as a collective congregation, the plans that you have in mind for 2018, what matters most to God is your why, not your what. Again, I say, regardless of the plans that you have, the stuff you've been praying about, the things that you are indeed believing God for, I need us to understand that what matters most to God is not your what, but your why. Every year we come up with a new set of resolutions. And for all intents and purposes, this is a good time, have I got a witness here, to make a fresh start. The Bible says we're forgetting those things which are behind, and we are reaching, stretching for those things which are in front of us. In theory, there's nothing wrong with setting new goals and seeking out new opportunities. However, the question that you and I have to intentionally ask ourselves this morning is whether or not God is the author of our objectives. Are y'all awoke so far? Write down, if you will, Jeremiah 29:11 is not on the screen. Write it down. Jeremiah 29:11, because it reminds us of who should be in charge of our days. God says, for I know the thoughts that I think towards you. God says, I have thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you, I wish I had a Bible reader here, an expected end. In other words, God has a plan for us, individually and collectively. Thank you, Deacon Dudley, for that prayer. He is the Alpha and the Omega. He knows the beginning and he knows the end. But in order to get the most out of our daily existence, if you say you want a blessed 2018, if you want to get the most out of your relationship with God, we have to put aside our personal plan and surrender ourselves to Him. How did we start? Just a few months ago, 3 John 1:2, he said, beloved, I wish above all things that you would what? Prosper and be in good health. But don't leave off that last part. Y'all remember them sermons. He says, even as your soul prospers. Come in last Sunday morning, Romans 8:28 says, and we know that all things work together for good of them that love God and are called not according to my own purposes and plans, but according to His purpose. Do y'all see what I'm getting at here? The question isn't whether or not God wants you to prosper in the new year. The question is not, does God want me to thrive in the new year? Hear me now. The question is not what you want. The question is, what do you want it for? I got you right where I want you. Now ask your neighbor, what's your motive? What's your motive? It's not about what you want, it's why you want it. As we turn towards this Genesis text, thank you for your patience. Let's take a closer look, if y'all don't mind, at the parties involved. What I want to do as we look at these 9 verses, I want to see if there's any semblance of us in this 6,000-year-old story. Can I take my time here? From a chronological standpoint, understand we are about 700 years removed from the flood. Y'all remember God told Noah to build that ark, and only Noah's family and 2 of every animal, male and female, was spared. And then when the flood subsided, then he told them all to go and be fruitful and multiply. We are now 700 years removed from that experience. And the world now is beginning to grow again. I can't let go of this word. They're beginning to recover from the previous generation's mistakes. Verse number 1 says that the whole earth was one language and one speech. Just like everybody in here speaks English for the most part, broken or whether it's slang or ghetto, you know, Ebonics, whatever it is, all of us are of one language and one speech. But it came to pass that as the population began to spread out and they journeyed from the east, verse number 2 says that they found a huge plot of land, brethren, in the land of Shinar, already cleared. And just like many other settling civilizations, the text says that they decided to set up shop there. Use, if you will, your ecclesiastical imagination. And picture this land called Shinar, already cleared out. Picture this land, picture, if you will, these acres as a representation of your life. The canvas is cleared. The landscape is full of promise and potential. What they have in front of them, brothers and sisters, is a new and exciting opportunity, hear me now, to custom build their experience. In other words, this land will be whatever they make it. It's a new season. It's a new year. It's a new opportunity to start over from scratch. I wonder if there's anybody here this morning. How many of you have ever looked at the landscape of your life and maybe possibly perhaps wished that you could do some stuff over? I knew I should have had at least 400 folks say something to that. I said, how many of you have ever secretly just looked at the landscape of your life and just wish, now I ain't complaining, but I just wish that I could do some things over again. It's all right to admit that. It ain't nothing to be ashamed of this morning, because all of us have wished for a do-over at some point or another. And in a lot of cases, hear me now, that's why people change, zip codes change, area codes change, spots on the map, or apply for new positions on a job. And the more I live and have different experience, hear me now, I try not to begrudge people who go after new opportunities. You're going to see me in a few minutes, especially for you younger, single, unattached people. If you don't have anything immediately holding you in a particular place, hear me, I see absolutely nothing wrong with getting out from a place of complacency and at least exploring what else may be out there in this big old world that God created. Are y'all going to talk to me here this morning? Did you know that the world is bigger than Tallahassee? Y'all going to help me preach after a while. Did you know that the world is bigger than Florida? Did you know that God made so many other cities, so many states, so many other nations, so many other continents other than where we are right now? There are places and people and doors waiting to be knocked on, but you'll never know what you can do or what you can be if you never step out there and take a chance. How many of y'all had to leave somewhere to get somewhere? I wish somebody would talk back to me here. How many of y'all had to take a journey from where you were in order to get to where you are right now? Don't be hating on people when they decide to leave this city and see what else is out there. Congratulations if you're settled in your life. But what God has for some people sitting on your row, it may require them, watch me now, to leave Leon, to get out from Gaston, jet out of Jefferson, and maybe land in Los Angeles. This ain't for everybody, but tell somebody I might be on my way somewhere. But I digress. This land called Shinar represents a new opportunity. Just like January represents some new possibilities for us, while it is perfectly understandable for us to pursue our passions and journey towards our dreams, the mistake they made in verses 3 and 4, I'm moving real fast here, that's the context of what I want to talk about with us today. The text says that they said to one another, go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone and slime for mortar. So far, so good, right? There's no problem with what they're doing on the surface. Seem to me, brothers and sisters, like they are well on their way. But let's read it again one more time. And this time, I want you to listen carefully. Text says, they said to one another, go to, let's make brick, burn it. Let's get some brick for stone and slime for mortar. So far, so good, right? The problem, and you're going to miss the sermon if you ain't careful. The problem is this. With all of their skills, with all of their resource, with all of their personal perspicacity, with all of their ingenuity and intellect, with all of the plans they were making, nobody stopped to consult the Creator. Hear me one more time. They said to one another, let's do this and let's do that. Let us make brick. Let us build stone. The flaw in their approach was, listen, they forged a plan, but they forgot to pray. Point number one, and I ain't got but 3.5 today. God is not obligated to bless your blueprint. I say it again. God is not obligated to bless your blueprint. See, there's somebody here this morning. You got big plans for 2018. God bless your soul. You got goals, you got dreams, and I already told you that there's nothing wrong with that in theory. However, if you recognize yourself as a child of God, you have to submit yourself to His sovereignty and seek His will for your life. In other words, it ain't your year, it's God's year. It's not your plans, it's God's plans. It's not your thoughts, it's not your will, it's not even your day. The Bible said this is the day that the Lord has made. You don't know if you're going to make it to next Sunday, so you shouldn't make plans without praying about it first. Hear me, because I know how we are, and I'm guilty of it too sometimes. We plan, then we start something, and then we throw God in on the back end talking about, Lord, I need your favor. See how quiet your neighbor got right there? They don't even want to talk to us no more. See, the truth of the matter is, we ain't got no business starting nothing unless we are sure that we're in the will of God. Now, the only way you're going to know, because this is a question I get all the time, how do I know if it's in God's will? How do I know if I'm supposed to stay, if I'm supposed to go? Lord, how do I know if I'm supposed to do this, to do that? Because, I mean, the Lord ain't going to set no butch on fire and talk to me, and I can't trust the stuff that I dream about because I ate barbecue before I went to bed, so I can't trust none of the stuff that I'm dreaming about at 3 o'clock in the morning. So how do I know when I'm hearing from God or not? You got to stay long enough in prayer and let God show you the blueprint. Now, you don't even have to be a Sunday school graduate and a Bible study all-star to be able to discern when God, because there's some cases where we know what God is saying, we just don't like what He's saying. We know right from wrong. We know when God give you that feeling in your spirit, man, when God give you that feeling in your gut that something ain't right, well, more than likely, it ain't right. Don't you know that His ways are not our ways? And His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. So this idea that somehow we can come up with a plan for our lives and build it to our customization. Come on, y'all, let's do this. Come on, y'all, let's do that. God said you have no business making plans because you don't have the blueprint. Listen, your life is like a puzzle. Somebody say a puzzle, a puzzle. Your life is like a puzzle. All you got is pieces, but God has the whole picture. I wish I had 2 or 3 more folk here. Y'all stay with me. I said your life is like a puzzle. You got a bunch of pieces scattered all over the place, but you don't know what the picture's supposed to be. Only God can show you that. How many times did you say you was doing something in the name of the Lord, and then it was a disaster, all of a sudden the devil is busy? That's because it wasn't the Lord in the first place. You got to look at them pieces, put them all out and say, Lord, order my pieces. put this thing together. It don't make sense unless the Lord puts it together. I don't know who I'm talking to, but you need to know that God is not obligated to honor some little blueprint you done sketched together for your life. Just because you said you wanted to be married by now don't mean God got to honor that. Talk to me here. Just because you desire a certain salary don't mean I got to honor that. Talk to me. Just because you want a certain size house, just because you want a certain position, just because you felt like I should have been at a certain level by now, you can give God all the plans you want, all the deadlines you want, but your neighbor can testify it's dangerous when you try to be your own builder. Where are the people that gave God some deadlines and he let that bad boy pass and go? Talking about, God, I need it by then. Lord, do it for me right now. Have you not learned God don't operate on your time? He ain't got to do nothing by Friday. He ain't got to do nothing by January the 30th or the 31st. He ain't got to come through with nothing in your timeline. But I heard some church folks say, he may not, I wish I had some help in here. He may not come when you want him, but wake that neighbor up and tell him he's always. Right on time. Have you sought the will of God? Have you sincerely prayed about the next chapter of your life? Of all the people that you talk to this year, I don't care how much love you got out there, how much support you got out there, before you tell your friends, before you tell your family, before you start making all these announcements on Facebook about your new life, God said you need to get off the net and get on your knees. Making all these announcements in January and your life tore up by Martin Luther King Day. That's because God ain't in it. Making all these announcements about new year, new me. You the same rat you was last year. And until you give God your complete and total life, ain't nothing about you gonna change. This year, I ain't making no resolutions. All I'm saying is, Lord, here I am. I'm available. Have your way. I know this is rough for some of us to hear, and I ain't even halfway through yet. But it's time out for us operating like independent architects and then CC God on the email at the end talking about bless my blueprint. Point number 2 says, and you need to get this, the only thing God is going to bless in 2018 is the objectives he ordained and the blueprint he designed. Again, God will only bless the ideas that he ordained and the desires that he designed. Anything outside of that is going to be unorganized and unreliable at best. Now, you smart, you can put some stuff together. But if the Lord ain't with you, talk back to me here. If God's Spirit has not ordained it, if God is not in that thing, it will not prosper. If you don't believe me, just ask the people in verse 4. Not only do you have to ask God what to do, but the whole purpose for this sermon, I'm just about there, is to get us to explore why we do what we do and why we want what we want. Let's look at the motive. They said, let's build us a city and a tower that will reach all the way to the heavens. Here it is. Let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the earth. Y'all, when I tell you there is so much in that verse, I literally had to walk away from the Bible, away from the computer, and just let that thing sink in for a minute because it hit me so hard. Listen, motive speaks to why you do what you do. It's not so much the what that gets us in trouble. It's the why that speaks to who we really are. They didn't say, let's build a city to honor God. They said, let's build so we can make a name for ourselves. They didn't even say, let's build an altar to God in our city and ask him to bless the rest of what we're doing. They said, no, we're going to build us a tower, build us a city, and it's going to reach all the way to heaven. Us going to make a name for ourselves. We're going to be big wigs in this town. And listen, we don't have to worry about dealing with other folk that we don't like, because we don't plan on being scattered all over the place like Noah told us. Hear me now, because you're not going to see this coming. It's going to hit you way down the road. We're going to huddle over here in our little corner and never deal. Where do I start? Don't worry, I'll make it somewhat quick. Listen. First of all, the idea of building something so big is just a testament to their egos. Almost like a certain person who likes to build skyscrapers and be the biggest thing on the block, let's say in New York City or Atlantic City. All right. Have you ever listened to the president talk? I mean, really listen to him. Everything's going to be grand. Everything's going to be humongous. Everything he does is the biggest idea ever. It's going to be huge. It's going to be the most revolutionary thing you've ever seen. Like nobody ever did anything significant before he came along. It is the epitome of arrogance. You got to tear everything and everybody else apart and build something huge to make yourself. That's the idea. I'm coming close to home in a minute. That's the idea that these people had. Their motive was to make a name for themselves. And the language they use at the end of verse 4 is where I got hung up. It sounds like certain parts of our country and certain parts of our city. Hear me now, because I'm finna get in some trouble here. The end of verse 4, they mention specifically not wanting to be scattered all over the place. You may not see a problem with that at first, but when you look at their motive, it sounds a lot like the language, hear me, don't miss this, it sounds a lot like the language that we hear in post-Obama America. See, y'all didn't have me for the first couple of Trump months, so I got to get this thing in now. They said, we don't want to be scattered. We want to build our own society and never have to deal with people outside of us. They had no desire for diversity. They said, we're going to build up our little city with no plans of ever combining with other communities. That's where we want our country back comes from. Y'all sit there and be quiet if you want to. I got so much more, you ain't even ready for what I'm going to say today. That's where these cities and these universities start buying up property and turning it into their little utopia. Do I have to be more specific? Gain Street, Callan Community, Southside Airport Corridor, Frenchtown Revitalization, so-called community redevelopment. Newsflash, if you are black in Tallahassee, if you are poor and white in Tallahassee, if you are colored in this community, I need you to know those plans don't include you. Now, you sit there if you want to and act like you don't know what I'm talking about. Tell your neighbor to pass the back now. Those plans do not include you, and when they tear down and when they build up, they're going to make it so only they can afford it. Just steady creeping south. Gain Street ain't enough. We'll build a round railroad and up that way, and then the further we go down, talk to me, rattlers. You worried about a football team, you better worry about your funding. You better show up to these meetings and tell these leaders what it is you want and what it is you don't want. Because while you're sleeping, while you're cheering, while you're looking at just the outward appearance, there's some plans being made and they ain't asking you how you feel. I'm going, listen. I can't preach this now. This is not what I'm coming to preach. All I'm saying is, God sent me to caution those of us who have aspirations of fame and fortune. God has no problem with your personal prosperity. He has no problem with you having stuff and things. We already established that. But Jesus said, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? And we usually stop right there, but you need to read what Jesus said after that. He asked the question, what will a man give in exchange for his soul? That's the scary part. Like, what are some people willing to do just to get power, just to be at the top of the tower? What are some folk willing to do just to have their name at the top of the list? There's nothing wrong with having a good name. But if your motives are in the right place, then God will be the one to promote you. And you ain't got to worry about promoting yourself. Come here, Abraham. God told him in chapter 12, he said, get out from your mom and daddy's house and start walking to a place that I'll show you. Here's what shouting me. God said, I'll make your name great. I'll expand your territory. I will bless those that bless you. And don't worry about haters. I'll curse those that curse you. And through you, all the families will be blessed. Do you know what that means? That means you ain't got to kill nobody to get what you want. Because if your motive was right, you wouldn't have to do it in the dark. You wouldn't have to do it in secret. You wouldn't have to be creepy crawly all over the community trying to get your stuff done. You ain't got to compromise your character to get no position. God is my agent. God opens doors for me. God puts you in places you need to be. All you got to do is follow directions. I wish I had about 172 people who know this year you ain't got to be acting all thirsty around people, trying to put yourself in their space, trying to be noticed by somebody. Talk to me here. Whoever I'm supposed to meet, God will make that thing happen. Whoever I'm supposed to be connected to, God will make that thing jump off. Because some folk I want to be close to, it may not be God's will that I be close to them. You might have the right motives, you might not have the right motives, but only God can show me that. So the last thing you need is more folk using you. The last thing I need is more folk in my life taking more than what they give. Your time is too precious. Y'all ain't shouting it yet. Your destiny is too critical for you to allow anybody to get access to your life and ain't had no examination. Slap somebody next to you and ask them, what's your motive? I'd rather have 3 riders. That's my 11 o'clock crowd talking to me now. I'd rather have 3 ride or dies than have 26 that got knives in their hand. The motive for that group was not pure. And what they didn't know in verse 5 is that God was getting ready to shut it down. They had their way from verse 1 all the way to verse 4. And then verse 5 said that the Lord came down to see the city, to see this tower that they're building. I bet God walking around talking about, oh, this is nice. Got yourself a little cul-de-sac here, huh? Got a little city you're building, huh? Oh, you running for office, huh? You finna make 6 figures, huh? You a baller, huh? You got it going on, huh? You think you cute, huh? I see your little city. And I see your little tower. But God says, I'm looking at your heart, and I see where this is going. Point number 3, I need you to write this down. Point number 3, you need to write this down. Point number 3, you need to write this down. When it comes to what we do and why we do it, God inspects every individual, and he appraises every action. He inspects every individual, and he appraises every action. It's not a matter of what you got planned for 2:18. God is looking at our motives, and he is inspecting us and appraising every one of our actions. Like, okay, you getting this degree, but why? What's the motive? You say you want that position, but why? You aspire to be more in your department, in your office, but why? You want to be in leadership, but why? You want to expand your reach, and you want to expand your network, but ask your neighbor, why? Is it so you can lord over people? Because, you know, some people had a rough childhood and they were, you know, mistreated and bullied all their life. And so when they finally do get something as an adult, the first thing they want to do is get all of that revenge on folk that have hurt them. So now they're in a position of power and they use it the wrong way. When they played hide and go seek, you always had to be it. Play pickup basketball, you was always the last one to get picked. So now you a big somebody now, and you're going to get your revenge on all the folk that did you wrong. Are you trying to satisfy some self-esteem deficiency you had from your childhood? You want to tell folk what to do. That's why you want to be in charge. You want to be able to come and go as you please because you don't like work hours. You want to be served. You want to be celebrated. Want to have people bow down to you. Be careful about walking around here and talking about God knows my heart. Tell your neighbor, he sure do. If you knew how much God really knows, you wouldn't be walking around so sure of yourself. He know why you really come to church. He knows why we attach ourselves to certain ministries. He knows if our sermons are sincere, if our songs are sincere. He knows if our prayers are pure. He knows if our actions are honest. Jeremiah 17:10 says, I, the Lord, search all hearts and examine secret motives, and I give all the people their due reward according to what their actions deserve. What's your motive? And so God said, I'm just about through maybe. God said, let us go down. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, let us go down and confuse their language. And we going to fix it, God says, to where they can't even understand each other. The foundation is uneven because they can't talk because they don't understand each other. The frame and the drywall was measured wrong. The windows and the doors wouldn't even fit on the hinges. Their plans couldn't prosper because they had the wrong motive. What are you building in 2018? Because remember, I told you, Shinar, the landscape, that's your life. What are you trying to build this year? What plans are you pursuing this year? Is God in it? Not CC in God. Not on the back end, P.S., Lord, by the way, I need your grace. Did God even ordain it? Because I heard my granddaddy say, only what you do for Christ will last. Now, I need to circle back to the Tallahassee conversation that we just had because there's some small-minded people in the room, and they will use all of what I said as an excuse to stay small and never get out of your comfort zone. I ain't saying you shouldn't build. I ain't saying you should not expand. I'm not saying that our city doesn't have great potential for growth. I'm excited. You should have read the article last Tuesday for all of the stuff that's getting built in Tallahassee in the year 2018 and forward. You need to go back and read that article. It lays out every single corner, every single street, every single initiative. You need to go and read that. It's some good stuff there. I hope we do get a cheesecake factory. I wish I had some help. I ain't mad at it now. Tired of going all the way to Jacksonville just to get me some calamari and a raspberry lemonade. Somebody ought to talk to me here. Growth is not the issue in this text. Expansion is not the issue in this text. Upward mobility, prosperity, doing it big, doing it better. Don't let anybody make you feel bad for having big goals. It's not a matter of what you want. God is asking, what do you want it for? Anybody in this room who is like me and has ever raised a child, anybody who is like my wife and I who has ever had to deal with some person who wants a whole lot of stuff but ain't got nothing. Listen, when your child asks you for $100, see, okay, when I was a child, $5 was a lot of money. But apparently with inflation and interest rates and whatever it is now, these teenagers now, they start at $100. As a parent, when your child asks you for $100, it's not a question of if you have it. I got it, but the question is what you want it for. And depending on what you tell me, the value of what you're asking for versus what I know I have to give you, God is the same way. He got the wealth of the world in his hands. He got a cattle on 1,000 hills. The question, my child of God, is not what you want. Your daddy is saying what you want it for. You want a better car so you can get to church? You need a more reliable car so you don't miss Sunday school? See how quiet it's getting on your road now? You want some more money so that you can bless somebody else? You want to be able to give your tithe, pay your bills, save a little bit, and still be a blessing to other people? Is that why you want some more money? If so, then God says we good. I can't with you, man, but I love you. If the motive ain't right, God will close the windows of heaven and lock the doors of blessings, not because he ain't got it, but because our heart wasn't right in what we asked for. That's why things fall apart on us sometimes, because God wasn't the architect. We tried to make God a consultant, just a resource person in the grand scheme of our life. But if you really want things to jump off in your life, you need to get down on your knees and examine your motives. I'm just about ready to close here, but listen, the Bible says, except the Lord build the house, you laboring in vain trying to build it. Except the Lord keep the city, the watchman laboreth in vain. In other words, you can labor for something, but it won't last. You can start all the things new that you want, but at the end of the day, it won't survive. How many relationships failed because they were not ordained by God? And how many relationships survive storm and the test of time because they were ordained by God? How many of your plans fell through because your motive wasn't right? How many of your schemes, how many schemes did your enemy come up with last year and none of it came to prosper? When your motives line up with God's plan, you ain't got to worry about the devil trying to destroy it. Because no weapon formed against you. I wish I had some shouters in here. I said no weapon. I don't care how big the bazooka is. I don't care how intimidating the weapon is. No weapon that's formed against you will be able to prosper when you got the right motive. And so, as I close, honestly, as I close, there's a tale of two towers. It's a picture, it's a tale of two towers. You got the Eiffel Tower. I believe that's in Paris. And then you have the Leaning Tower of Pisa. It's in Italy somewhere, I believe. Now, understand that the Eiffel Tower stands firm, hear me, because the base is bigger than the body. The foundation is of such to where it's firm and can handle what's on top of it. See, if you are the head of your life, oh, I don't go to church, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious, and I just don't believe it. If you can't submit yourself to be taught by somebody, your base, I don't expect no shouting up in there. Your base is not secure. But then something interesting happened. Because, you know me, I'm curious, maybe even nosy. I wanted to know, how did the Leaning Tower of Pisa start leaning in the first place? Always want to know. Google is your friend. The tower started leaning during construction. Because the foundation was built on soft ground that couldn't support the weight. There's going to be some times in your life, and I said I wasn't going to holler today. There's some times in your life where the weight of this world will come crashing down on you. And depending on your foundation, I don't know about you, but I need somebody who can handle all my weight and won't tip over on me. My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest frame, but holily. Ain't got no church folk in here. On Jesus' name, on Christ. Not my little raggedy reputation. On Christ. Not them figures in your bank account. On Christ. The solid rock I stand, and all of the ground is sinking, saying, here's another one. Now unto him who is able to keep you from fall. There's somebody here this morning, you thought you were going to fall, but because you had a solid foundation, through it all, tell somebody, I'm still standing. Through the storm, you're still standing. Through the crisis, you're still standing. Through the sickness, you're still standing. Through the heartache, you're still standing. Through the attack, you're still standing. 10 of y'all in here can testify. Through the depression, you're still standing. Through the sickness, you're still standing. Through all your aches and pains, you can't stand, but you can wave your hand. When life gets to be too heavy for you, I got somebody that I can lean on. Is there anybody here that knows who you're leaning on? His name is Jesus. Y'all gonna help me preach, ain't you? I said Jesus, the lily of the valley. Jesus, my bright morning star. Jesus, my leaning post. Is there anybody here that knows who you're standing on? Well, we got to get to the table now. I was a little more curious, and I asked another question. I said, Lord, words, if the Tower of Pisa was leaning from the beginning, tell me, Lord, how come hundreds of years later it ain't fell over yet? And I heard Google saying that from the moment they found out about it, the architects got together and they did what was called a restoration project. Have I got a witness here? The Tower of Pisa used to tilt 5 degrees and it should have fell over, but the architects got together and now it's only leaning 3 degrees. Now there's somebody here that can't shout about that, but is there anybody here that can give your testimony? I'm still leaning, but not as much as I used to. I'm still crazy, but not crazy as I used to be. I'm still a mess, and you still don't want to try me, but I'm not as bad as I used to be. Shake your neighbor's hand and tell him, neighbor, the reason I'm still standing is because of restoration. I used to lean 5 degrees. Now I only lean 3 degrees. And if I keep my hand in God's hand, after a while, my 3 degrees will turn into 2 degrees, and my 2 degrees will turn into no degrees. If you be patient with me, if you keep praying for me, tell your neighbor I'll straighten up after a while. I'll get it together after a while, because the Lord's been good to me. The Lord made a way for me. I should have fallen in my sins, but he reached way down to pick me up. You ought to give your own testimony. I said he picked you up, turn you around, place your feet on solid ground. He came all the way down through 42 generations. One Friday on that cross, he died. I said he died. He died to straighten me up. He died to clean me out. They buried him in a borrowed tomb, stayed in the grave all day Friday, all Friday nights, all day Saturday, all Saturday nights. Shake your neighbor's hand, tell him it's a new year, but the same message. Tell him Sunday morning, he got up with all power in his hands. Shake one neighbor's hand like you love Jesus. Shake one neighbor's hand like you're going to heaven, and tell them, neighbor, I may not be all I ought to be, but I'm not what I used to be. The Lord is working on me. The Lord, he's building me. The Lord making me better. Won't he do it? Won't he do it? Yeah! Yeah! He's working. He's working. He's working. That's you, that's you, that's you, that's you. You a trip sometime, ain't you? Don't you be leaning sometime. Just got out of church, still full of hell, leaning. Just got out of Sunday school, still cussing. But tell somebody, please be patient with me. Because the Lord ain't through with me yet. Go on, lean one more time, but after a while, he'll start to tell your neighbor, I'm getting straight. Yeah, he's working. Doors open. Oh, he's working. Brothers and sisters are standing down. Listen. All over this building. Only what you do for Jesus is going to prosper. Now, if you can look God in the eye and tell him with certainty that what you're doing is what he told you to do, go for it. But if you're operating with the wrong motive, I wouldn't want to go through all that effort, all that trouble, wasting all that time, all that energy, only for my little Jenga puzzle to fall down anyhow. Don't waste your time this year. Don't waste your energy this year. And I wrote this down, and I want you all to help me pray this prayer. Only if you feel it in your spirit. I can't make you do nothing. But I want you to pray this prayer with me. Lord, I thank you for being the architect of my life. You have a plan and you have a purpose, and I want to be in your will. Tell God, I want some things. I have some desires, but I want your will more than I want my way. So I'm asking in Jesus' name, touch my mind, touch my heart, order my steps, and make my motives pure. In Jesus' name, amen. Can you give God praise if you receive that word today? Amen.